Hello and welcome to Warcraft Daily for today the 20th of February 2014. So today we don't exactly have a great deal of news, but we do have a whole bunch of tweets from the developers and at least the promise of news coming soon. So what's happened is that there is a press event that's going on in both Versailles and California. I think it's in San Francisco specifically, and a bunch of the WoW fan sites have been invited. So could this mean Warlords of Draenor pre-orders? Perhaps not. I don't think they'd release such a business decision, but I think we will get quite a few interviews and things like that that relate to the expansion in a pretty significant way, so it's nice that that's going to be a thing. But yeah, let's just move on to tweets from the developers, because really no real news happened, apart from the orc female model, which you can check because it is on the channel. So first of all, we have a tweet from Celestian, and he said that healing as a concept has basically got innate growth limitations because of how repetitive it can be, and he said that that is just the nature of healing. And this leads me on to another question, but this time a question for you. What could they do to make healing more interesting? I've never really healed myself, I just didn't find it very compelling, but if you are a healer, what would just make it a little bit more fun? Because honestly, at the minute, I do see a bit of a problem there where it's kind of like it's just the same thing, and perhaps some healing mechanics don't really interact as well with fight mechanics as they do with some other classes. But that said, when a damage phase comes, of course you need to be able to heal, so there is some reactive gameplay there. There's another tweet, by the way, I haven't listed it down on my list, but there was, I think it was Watcher was saying that ideally he wants the healing in Warlords to feel a little bit different. Basically, right now, its damage is apparently too spiky because of the relative power of healing, so if healing was perhaps not as powerful, then you would constantly be on your toes a little bit more, and they wouldn't have to whack you with spike damage to actually make healing feel compelling and reactive. So, yeah, I don't know, look, I'm not much of a healer myself, but if you are, do let me know what you think about all that stuff. And let's move on to the next tweet, and it is from Helinka, who said that he's pretty confident that they will have skirmishes at lower levels, combined with gear scaling. And I think that's very good. If they were to just have these skirmishes and then just have it like in level brackets, like what it is with, say, Battlegrounds, then it would be kind of crappy. But if they mix in with gear scaling, it means that basically you have sort of semi-half decently balanced skirmishes for the entire way up. I'm not too sure exactly what they would reward, and in fact, Helinka himself did say that their low-level skirmishes are not the sort of thing they would release at the start, because they would need to work out rewards and things like that, so perhaps not right at release, but definitely in a later patch. So what kind of rewards could this have? Because obviously while leveling up, it's, I guess, intended for you to be doing PvE, so maybe there could be like some leveling up PvP sets, though well, those leveling up PvP sets would have to be repeat art, because I doubt they would do a whole bunch of repeat art just for this low level stuff. Overall, though, I really do like the idea of skirmishes being available at lower levels. They seem like a really fun way of doing arenas, and personally, I'm going to do a lot of skirmishes, because that's the way I do PvP. I don't really want to organize with people. I just want to be like, okay, I have 15 minutes. Well, I could just jump into WoW and play some skirmishes, and then that would work out quite well. So yes, overall skirmish system very good, and I should probably just mention that if you don't know what the skirmish system is because you didn't watch yesterday's show, A, watch yesterday's, but B, skirmishes are essentially they're a solo, well, you can queue up as a team, or you can queue up solo, but they're basically 2v2 and 3v3 arena things which reward slightly lesser gear and rewards and stuff like that. Overall, though, they seem very interesting. Next, let's move on to Watcher. So he said that the plan is that classic loot will be the default option for normals and heroics in Warlords of Draenor, but then personal loot will also be available as an option. Of course, normals in Mists of Pandaria are the same difficulty as heroics in Warlords, and flex in Mists is the same as normal in Warlords. But both the normal and heroic versions of raiding in Warlords will be completely flexible in terms of numbers, so that's why they want to have the option of personal loot, because if you are in there with a pug, and, well, it just cuts down on ninja looting and various different problems like that. Okay, so next we have a tweet from Chris Robertson, who said no announcements about orcs, but, well, he was just speaking to the fact that the orc in the Artcraft post had brown skin, and Draenor orcs have brown skin, so perhaps this means that player-made orcs will be able to have brown skin, because we've only been able to play as green orcs, yet lore-wise, brown orcs exist, so perhaps they're going to let us do that? Really, after we found that tribe of orcs on in Nagrand, on Outland back in the Burning Crusade, it does make complete sense a player-made orc actually being a brown-skinned orc, so I think absolutely that should be in the game. What's the name? It's not is it Maghar or Moknathal? No, Moknathal, the half-ogres. I think it's Maghar, yeah it is. Anyway, that's just the clan name of those orcs. So, or the orcs that we found in Nagrand that actually had Garrosh sort of hanging out with them. Anyway, so next, one final little tweet from Lore, who said that Warlords is going to be adding tournament gear, and this is gear that everyone can get easily, but it can only be used in wargames. So basically, imagine you just pick up a item level, I don't know, let's just, for the sake of argument, 550 set. It's completely free, anyone can get it, but you can only use it in wargames. Now that, of course, would be there because wargames are meant to be 100% balanced, obviously. With wargames going for the more competitive style sort of thing, that does make sense. Now, one thing that's worth saying is the wargames are not at least from my perspective, are not going to be having a ladder or a reward structure or transmog items you can get from it, anything like that. And really, that's just about it for tweets. But in the interests of not having this show being extremely short, let's go and take one or two questions from Reddit. So the first one is from Treemender, and he said, is there any chance they could give an option to get reduced or normal experience from mobs? A few days ago, I started questing an Ice Crown for the first time, and when I was halfway through the zone, I got to level 80, which was a shame, because I missed out on a lot of content. Okay, so I think that, just having some sort of reduced XP thing, maybe, I think it would work out very well, but it may require some tuning and things like that. Though overall, if a system like that was easily possible, then absolutely, I agree with you, because out-leveling zones is one of the biggest bummers to leveling up, and for a lot of players, maybe they would really like a certain zone, but because they're so driven and leveling up, they'll just move on from it without seeing some fun content. So yes, a way to get reduced XP would be kind of nice, though I think there is another problem here. The in-game turn it off your XP option is really kind of bad. First of all, you have to pay 15 gold, which is a bit of a nuisance, but you also have to travel to either Stormwind or Orgrimmar and talk to an NPC. Now, when you're just chilling out in Northrend and you realise, well, perhaps I should just quest for an hour with no XP so I don't outlevel this zone, well, when that happens, you don't want to just travel all the way back to Stormwind and then back to Northrend. You know, that's just annoying. And I think that really this should be on the UI, because turning off... Okay, so I'm normally against everything being thrown onto the UI, but turning off your experience really is not the kind of thing that's too lore-friendly, so I don't see the point in it being on an NPC anyway. So I'd say yes, absolutely, they should just have a toggle in some sort of UI. Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. Okay, so the next question is from Demi Devos, who says, well, it's actually 5 different questions, but let's just start with the first one. For Battleground queues, wouldn't it be better to see the Battlegrounds ordered by type so that you could just go through and queue for Capture the Flag, etc., and you could just go in and do a random map of a specific type. Also, smaller maps are awesome, and I'd love to see Brawl, where 2 sides could just bash each other's skulls with a limited set of respawns, a little bit like a deathmatch, which would be lovely with chaos and limbs flying everywhere. Okay, so fair enough question. As for this idea of being able to queue for a specific battleground type, I really like that. Personally, I don't like the giant Zergy battlegrounds because there's just far less strategy there. I'd prefer Warsong Gulch, Altaric Valley, Eye of the Storm. The maps that really emphasize an objective, they're the ones I like, so if I could just queue for those, it would be great. So yes, absolutely I agree with you on that one. And then also this idea of a brawl mode, I think that actually, it could work if it was, okay, solid just deathmatch wouldn't work, but a team deathmatch could work. I am just a little bit concerned that, well, as you're saying, a lot of other team deathmatch games, the reason that they work is because of the complexity of shooting and just the fact that the game is basically completely designed around positive feedback. So say Call of Duty, you kill a guy, 5 pop-ups appear, and you know, you get half the fucking universe tells you you're amazing, which of course you're not, but whatever. And that doesn't really translate too well into World of Warcraft, so I'm not too sure how fun it would be without an objective to aim for, though I'm totally up for the idea of it being a thing and getting to try it out. Right now, this sort of deathmatch mode works really well with Arena because of just the smaller, more manageable size of players, which means that you can have, well, combat can more be a dialogue between those players. In a giant team deathmatch, it's perhaps not as much, but still, I think it could turn out quite well if Blizzard were to have interesting maps and things like that. So yeah, sure, absolutely. And let's move on to the next part of the question. So he said that Blizzard already has said that they wouldn't do it, but he thinks there would still be that Blizzard should still consider giving PvP in general a specific starter gear set that would automatically switch, that you would automatically switch to when you move into a battleground or arena, and that this piece of gear would level up while you play, perhaps even add in a mount that gets more armor as you rank up in PvP, and various things like that. Okay, so this idea of one basic PvP starter set that ranks up as you go, the reason why Blizzard wouldn't do this is because it sort of compromises the way rewards are done. I understand that just getting X amount of wins and then your gear upgrading is nice, but one of the things is that you get a new set of armor with every PvP tier, which has got different art, okay, apart from Season 15, but it kind of makes sense in the case of Season 15. But yeah, there's different art, different stats, different item level, etc., and it's more that just having a fresh new piece of gear is kind of more invigorating and exciting than just having the same piece of gear that stays on you the whole time. It's like when you have heirlooms and perhaps a really badass world drop sword appears for you, but you don't want to use it because your heirloom weapon's better. It takes out a bit of the excitement. So that's basically why Blizzard wouldn't do that. Though I do like the idea of a mount that like gets more kind of kitted out as you advance. I think that's a really nice idea and a pretty cool place to bring PvP mounts in general. Then another cool thing would just be having, along the lines of more cosmetic rewards, like what you said with the mount, is just having things in your garrison kind of grow as you PvP. So maybe you have a war room or something like that that gets more decked out as you become better at PvP. I think that would be really cool. Okay, so the third part of the question is that, well, he said, I really enjoyed going through the Caverns of Time instances in Wrath of the Lich King. Will they bring it back, only way more dynamic and action-orientated, and release it in chapters, perhaps like a book to relive past events? Well, honestly, that's what they have done. I'm not really too sure what you mean by more dynamic and action-orientated, because World of Warcraft plays like World of Warcraft, and I don't think there's a great deal we can do about that. But the idea of them just releasing really cool parts of past events is something they've been doing, though I would certainly not mind if they were to do more of it. There are a lot of cool events in World of Warcraft, especially in the lore, and they can absolutely make fun little dungeons out of them. So, I mean, yeah, I think more emphasis in the Caverns of Time would be really good. Okay, so next, let's move on to the fourth question, and he said, why don't they add more environment and vertical gameplay to things? I loved Lady Vash and Kel'Thuzad, and it was cool because you just used the stuff lying around to beat them. It felt more like an adventure game. Alright, so as for using things around you to beat the boss fight, I'm fine with that. I think it's a pretty cool idea. And really, it's one of those tools that they should just use whenever it makes sense for a boss. So, for an example, I think it was Amtramides in Blackwing Descent, the blind, that's it. The blind dragon, where you'd use those ancient, like, things, and you'd whack them, and then it would stun him. But general things like that are inside the world, yeah, sure, they're cool. As for the idea of vertical gameplay, well, World of Warcraft, okay, it does take place in a 3D game world, but often the mechanics don't particularly reflect that too well. Like, what if you're trying to use Desecration or Blizzard or something like that? It just ends up being a little bit weird. So I'd prefer things like that just to be a short element of a fight. A short but definitely unique and interesting element. Like all things, they're best when used in moderation, so yeah, I think it's okay. It's just that they can't emphasize it too much, because World of Warcraft really is designed to be sort of just played in a flat plane, honestly. Sometimes things don't work out too well when they try to go Ultra 3D and vertical. Plus, I think it just affects the readability of a fight, which is a little bit of a problem when they're trying to get players into the fight. Which, okay, shouldn't be a reason not to do something, because It's just saying, oh well, we don't want to make it too complex, but I can just see it being an actual issue that Blizzard would bring up around a board table when discussing a new fight mechanic. Okay, so for the last question, he said, they should add some generals to trash packs, which add buffs to mobs, and make trash packs more engaging to give them purpose again. They could add things like modifiers in Diablo to keep each run through feel fresh. Well, yeah, I think the idea of stronger mobs is pretty cool. And it fits in rather well with this whole Timeless Isle style of dynamic, like open world content. So yeah, sure, I think it would be fine to have a general pop up. They would just have to make sure that maybe it's not the kind of thing where you would be unable to kill a pack of mobs because there was a general there. So if you were leveling up and you were, say, level 95 and you were in a level 95 zone and there was a bunch of mobs plus a general and you just couldn't kill them, well, I'm not particularly sure that would be the best idea unless this general was like a mini world boss that had decent loot on him. But I think that actually for things like Alteric Valley, that would be a great idea. Then also for any max level outdoor zones, so say the Timeless Isle, sure, but have there be packs of the Yangol people walk around the place that have like a mini general or something. I think that would be really cool and a good idea. It would also just spice up the combat a little bit. So overall, I think that's all pretty good stuff. Anyway, that is it for today's Warcraft Daily. We ended up going on for far longer than I thought we would, so that actually worked out pretty well. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you want to support the show, you can check out my Patreon page and my social media links, which are completely all fantastic and things you should look at. Anyway, that's it for the show, and I will see you next time.